I'd love that because they're like my babies. There's so much passion in there. Yeah, and I put them all right here so I could like show you the covers. Here's the first attempt. That was an LP. Fred and me as kids, it seems like. And then I was living in England, and then so the first three that I did as CDs were for Biddulph Recordings, which is a English company out of London. And this was the first one. Let me see if I can get no glare on that. So complete works of Robert Fuchs. And there are two sonatas and a set of fantasy pieces. And it's really incredible repertoire. Brahms apparently didn't have much good to say about any composers, but he did about Robert Fuchs. So here's this stuff which is not very well known, but it's just fantastic, gorgeous repertoire. And so that was the first one. I started off, this was a bit of a strategy because as an unknown artist, it's hard for people to hear your work. So starting off with something that is new repertoire that people don't know. So you're doing a service to bring out into the light just really deserving music. And just a very quick aside, my dear longtime friend, Eric Wen, was the person who turned me on to this repertoire. He currently teaches at Juilliard and Curtis, music studies. And so he was the one that would come up with these incredible ideas for recording. And so he suggested that. And the thing is, it's perfect CD length, which you also have to take into consideration. Is it 60 to 70 minutes of music. So anyway, great repertoire. Oh, the second one is the 21 Hungarian dances arranged by Piatti. And the last piece on there is 3 fantasy pieces on Hungarian national melodies by Franz Schmidt. So again, that was Eric Wen put me onto that. And you couldn't find the music back then. I don't know where he dug it up. Maybe the Library of Congress or something. But just as we were issuing it, they came out on Simrock. So they're all published by Simrock now. But that was the first recording of all those. then the third one, also for these three for Biddulph recordings, is complete works of Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco. And here's the original. It was reissued, but just for laughs. I thought I'd show you that. Here's how it originally appeared on Biddulph. So they had taken a picture of him and then put tint on there. So I highly prefer this version when it was reissued. So that's the cover art now. And it's very unique. The music sounds kind of, the word exotic comes to mind because it doesn't sound like anything else. It's very unusual kind of sonority. But the first, I forgot to mention, the first recording I did was in English, the Robert Fuchs. I did that with Caroline Palmer, a wonderful English pianist. And then the Brahms Hungarian dances and the Castelnuovo Tedesco I did with Frederick Moyer. So now the Castelnuovo Tedesco and the Hungarian dances are all reissued on JRI recordings. So most of these recordings you can find on jrirecordings.com. So then the fourth is this. It's kind of a recital program with Fred Moyer, Schumann Fantasy Pieces, Mendelssohn Sonata in D, Britten Sonata, and Debussy Sonata. That is originally from JRI recordings, and that's with Fred. And then there is this one, also JRI recordings. This is solo. So Kodai solo sonata and Tovey solo sonata. So of the Tovey, it still might be the only recording of that piece. I'm not sure. then Fred and I did the 2 Brahms sonatas. Now I might be getting the order, maybe not necessarily exactly right, but here's one I did with a wonderful pianist who was a colleague at University of Arizona. It's sonatas by Dohnányi, Kodály, and Strauss. So the other thing I showed you was Kodály solo sonata. This one has the Kodály sonata with piano, and the Dohnányi is also a great piece. So this was really fun to do. There's me and Tanis. I did one in Germany. This is this would have to be ordered. It's Aton, A-T-O-N recordings. I did this with a German pianist, Beethoven A major, the original version of the Chopin Polonaise, and Broccolini Dre. The Suite Populaire Espagnole, which I have on another more recent recording, and a little Bach transcription. That's with a German pianist, Franz Josef Birk. So I think maybe next was the Haydn concertos. This was, I was in, it was my sabbatical year at University of Arizona, and so I had the year off, and I played a bunch of concerts in London at St. Martin in the Fields. I did a concerto there, and I did a lunchtime recital, and then I did a Wigmore concert, and then I flew on to Bucharest and recorded both of these concertos. Here's another one I did with Fred. This is 6 pieces by Arensky. I'm sure by now it's on another recording. I think at the time it might have been the first to have all 6 of these Arensky short pieces, and Rachmaninoff Sonata. Of course, Fred and I had already recorded it for that LP, but we had matured a lot since then. And this is one that I did with a wonderful German pianist, Babette Hierholzer. And so we had the same concert agent. That's how we met. And that's how I met that Brazilian pianist I was telling you about, Diana Caxos, just such a wonderful player. So Babette and I did this, and this is an example of like repertoire that is not known that much, that's absolutely fantastic. I love it. It's like getting more Beethoven. We only have 3 sets of variations and 5 sonatas, but it's never enough. But the Ries, it's fantastic stuff. So I just love that music. He was a student of Beethoven and pretty unknown, but great repertoire. There's something which I don't have, because Babette and I also were releasing 3 pieces by Robert Volkmann, which we had originally wanted to turn into a CD, but we never completed it. But we have these 3 short pieces, and that I've just put out. It's available for digital download at JRI Recordings, and it also just should have just gone up on like iTunes and Spotify and stuff like that. That's also with Babette. Oh, it's an interesting thing about Babette. There was a movie that came out a while ago when Gidon Kramer just left Russia for the West. He defected to the West. Right after that, this movie was made called Frühlingssymphonie. It's with English subtitles, Spring Symphony. And it's a wonderful movie about Robert and Clara Schumann, and Babette does the stand-in for the hands and everything for that actress who is Nastasia Kinski. And Babette looks very much like her. So a very young Babette played that. Anyway, that's fun. I thought it'd be so fun to get her to do something and, you know, show, hey, in this shot, this is how they did this. And anyway. So the next two I did kind of in one summer. This one is Song of the Birds, Spanish and Latin cello. Song of the Birds because the last track is the beautiful little gem by Casals that he played at the United Nations as a kind of plea for world peace. And it's just a gorgeous little 1.5 minute piece. And it's got, you know, just all this sizzly Spanish and Latin stuff. I just love that stuff. That's also with Tanis Gibson, a fellow University of Arizona faculty person. then in the same summer, I did this. Now, this is really unusual. This is meant to look very psychedelic and very shamanic. So the composer is Paul de Sen, Venezuelan composer, fantastic cellist. And he wrote one of the pieces on here is Jaguar Songs. And it's 5 movements. Well, 4 movements. The last movement is kind of 2 parts. And it uses the cello in a really, really different way. Like he kind of makes fun of the traditional cello, always having this sad singing line. And he said the cello is capable of just incredible things. So this was a real stretch for me because I haven't done a lot of contemporary music. I do have a piece, my brother's a composer, and he's written something for solo cello and percussion backing track. And that's a project that I'm working on in the moment, but that'll take a little while to come out. But other than that, Britten Sonata was about as, new as I did. In other words, not very new. So this is really unusual stuff. So there's a solo piece there, Jaguar Songs, and all the others are multi-tracked. I had never multi-tracked before. And so I had to get used to having like headphones on where I have one thing and I'm hearing a click, and I have to play with a click and then kind of layer things on. And there's a lot to say about that, but just, basically that was a real learning curve for me. And the techniques he used, like he especially in that solo cello piece. Oh, I have a video that'll take a while to come out. I remember one reviewer saying it would have been great to be able to see how she's making these sounds. So I took one of the nuttiest movements, which was the last movement of it, and I videoed that, but it's just sitting in a hard drive somewhere. I have to get that together. But there's a lot of tapping on the string, like quick rhythmic tapping, battuto, on the stick. And it's supposed to be imitating a kind of instrument from the Amazon, from some indigenous people who it's some kind of tube that's tapped on or something. Anyway, and then there's like all these shamanic references, and there's weird kind of otherworldly sounds. Like for the first time, I had never had to do parallel unisons. We have parallel octaves all over the repertoire, right? But unisons, where you're playing the same note on both strings, it sounds really weird and otherworldly and just kind of, so he does this kind of with a glissando, and it goes kind of like, kind of like with little glissandos, but very weird, like monks chanting. It's very weird. And then after you've had that for a little bit, he goes into this thing where they stop being parallel and they go, where the voices are changing at different times. And it's kind of mind-bending. When we were making this, me and the engineer, we had this joke about that when the CD is issued, they should attach a reefer on the outside, So anyway, and at one point in one of the movements, it's imitating an electric guitar with all sorts of bending and kind of on the bridge. And anyway, it's nutty, but interesting nutty. So that's the Jaguar Song CD. then at that point, I had moved here to North Carolina, and I started to do more videos because I could see that that was kind of the thing. But I did do some really important things. Well, one was the kind of internationally recognized, probably as maybe the top Mendelssohn scholar, happens to be here in North Carolina at Duke University, and happens to be a longtime friend who, when my boyfriend Eric Wen was going to Yale in musicology, and I was hanging out there a lot, and Larry was also in that musicology department, and that's how I knew Larry. So I've known Larry for a long time. And so when I got here, we started to collaborate, and we did the complete Mendelssohn. Now, this is a so-called CD book. It's not a jewel case. It's made out of totally recyclable materials, which is something that Fred runs JRI Recordings, and he's very into this new format because of the environmentally friendly materials. So we tried to make something that, because people, CDs are becoming less, people buy them less. So we wanted to make it a special product. So we put, a really, really pretty booklet in there with lots of like color prints, some things of, it was very in depth with some of Mendelssohn's own artwork and stuff. And there's also, I think, a German translation. Now, the story with this really took a turn because Larry and I had recorded most of what goes in here. But it's also Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel, Felix Mendelssohn's sister's 2 works for cello and piano. So we have, plus there were some things where there was something written for cello, but it never got completed. And Larry has experience completing works, and he's done editions for Bärenreiter, just as a musicologist. He's experienced doing that for big publishers like Bärenreiter. So he finished this thing, and we recorded that. And we also did, there was a big, so apparently there was this set of variations in A major that Mendelssohn had written as a collaboration with Josef Merck, M-E-R-K. So Merck, if you want to be really American about it, has written, like these sets of etudes and everything, but I don't think he's really known as a composer, at least he wasn't to me. But anyway, apparently, Mendelssohn and Merck were billiards buddies. and they would hang out and play beer. But so Merrick was a super, super, super accomplished cellist. So they got together and did this set of variations as a collaboration, but the cello part was lost. And so I have this image of it like falling off of the back of a cart or something. So all we had was this piano part. So Larry wrote a cello part to it and completed it. And so it's kind of like a world premiere of that. And he wrote it, but I helped him tweak it because as a non-cellist, a lot of things didn't work. So I'd say, well, why don't you change register here? And you could add a turn here because this sounds too bare bones. And so I made artistic suggestions. And it's now published by Bärenreiter because since then, Larry has done complete Mendelssohn works for cello and piano. He's the editor, and they actually put this piece in there. So it's now a published piece. So that's very exciting. But on a personal side, there's also an interesting story to the CD because we had recorded most of it and Larry had a stroke. Now he's great. You would hardly notice that he has a bit of a limp, but we hadn't done that Merck piece, and I think we hadn't done the Fanny Hensel pieces. And I saw him in the hospital shortly afterwards, and he literally could not move his right side, but he could talk and his face was normal. So in 2 months, it's such an inspiring story because Larry, his love for music and his passion about playing the piece, he's a great musicologist and a great writer, so poetic, and a great scholar, but he's also a wonderful pianist, and he was not going to have it that he wouldn't be able to play piano anymore. And the will and determination in 2 months, and the people who helped him with rehab, I think they couldn't even believe it, but in 2 months, he played a recital at his home to thank all his friends for all their support. And he played a recital with a German pianist, Katrina Uda, who was, he was her advisor. She's a grad student at Duke. And they played piano, right hand, all over the place. Pedaling was difficult, but incredible recovery. I mean, so inspiring. And we were able to complete the CD. But I remember in the hospital, I said to Larry, your call, shall we release this, what we've got? Should we wait and see how your recuperation goes? And he thought about it and he said, release what we have. So we put the CD out, and then later, because he recovered, we added the bonus CD to it, which goes inside. So anyway, that's a lot of story behind that one. So then there's the complete Beethoven. Now this I did with Fred, and this is also a 2 CD set. It's also a CD book, you know, the environmentally friendly format. And it has, you know, the 3 variations, 5 sonatas. And we tried to make the, you know, it interesting to actually have the CD because it's a beautiful booklet. And we put, for instance, you know, a print of some of the autograph manuscripts. And so it's a really a beautiful product. And we actually used, here's the second CD, it's 2 CDs. We used some of the autograph manuscript for the background of the design. Very quickly, there's also a very interesting project, which was for music -1. So this is where I actually recorded the cello part to these 2 concertos, Saint-Saëns and Lalo concertos. You know, I know the pieces very well, but I had to record those without hearing the orchestra with me. I just had to hear it in my head and be able to time it in a way that the orchestra would be able to, you know, follow it. So that was really interesting. So I had to provide them with that. And then I worked with the guy who created the orchestra. The orchestra, a lot of music -1 products, by the way, the covers the way they have them now. I think they changed this one. My photo isn't on it. I think it has a picture of Saint-Saëns or something. So it looks different now. It's been reprinted. But you get in the product, you get a CD, and it has excerpts that you can practice with where you hear the orchestra and you get to play along with it, and they give you a click to prepare you when you start. And so anyway, that was a really interesting project. I had to work, the guy created an orchestra with just sampled sounds, which they can do now. And so he could kind of, you know, I worked with him and to get it to work with the part that I had sent him. But that's kind of like an educational tool. And my most recent thing is just taking a lot of audio that I have that didn't become a CD, like it wasn't CD length or something. And now one really hesitates to put money into CDs because people don't buy them. So digital downloads, I think, are becoming really popular. So some things I'm going to just release as digital downloads.